Side 1 is calm, non-abusive, although highly fragmented. Side 2 is schizophrenic.
Like I train hard every single day, like the coach staff help me a lot, especially Robo. After training, I say, Robo, please help me with some finish. And every single day he's there with me, helping me a lot.
The mission bells told me, ding dong, that I must not stay south of the border, down Mexico way.
Hello and welcome to episode 35 of There's Still Time, the AFTN podcast. I'm your host, Michael McCall, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Steve Pander.
Hello, Michael. What's going on?
Well, it's a busy day, busy week for us as well. Our third podcast in a week.
Yeah, make it up.
Yeah, I'm trying to introduce a new thing in our household 3 times a week, but my wife's not really having any of that. So much to talk about today, and we're going to try and cram it in half an hour. Done a couple of long podcasts. We're going to try and keep this one short and snappy. Let's call this the Dry Twig podcast.
Sure, let's do it.
So I guess we'll start off by talking about Camilo. Still no final resolution about Camilo, but it's looking close. Or no official final resolution.
Well, the fact that the commissioner of MLS has commented on it after the SuperDraft, that is telling you something that's, it's very close to a resolution. Don Garber, well, to paraphrase him, basically he's saying it's very close. And
he said it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. And a couple of comments other he made about the Whitecaps. He felt sorry for the Whitecaps and he felt sorry for Carl, which I'm assuming is Robinson on Valentine.
He also said he was very disappointed in the whole situation. And I think MLS have dodged a bullet by that transfer going through and it not being challenged in the courts and the whole legality of MLS contracts as well. So it's a lucky escape in some ways for MLS. Not lucky for the Whitecaps, who have lost their 22-goal leader of the team.
So going into the offseason, there were, people were asking if, because he was coming off the Golden Boot, if somebody came on with an offer, and there was that offer from Norway for $2 million.
But was it actually an offer, or was that just paper talk? Because there's still nothing
we don't know
about that.
We don't know if the agent actually went to the Norwegian team and said, he's available, and, that's where it all started from there. What do you think of the rumored $1.5 million? Is that just what the Whitecaps are getting? Is that the overall mark? We don't know yet because it's just a rumor and it's uncorroborated reports at this point. There's no word from in Mexico or from the Whitecaps.
Normally when people are talking about transfer fees, though, it's not what the club is going to get once everyone else gets their cut. It's usually what the final fee is. So you're looking at $1.5 million is the figure that some people have thrown out there. We were also told that there's been negotiations, there's been stumbling blocks because Querétaro are not wanting to meet the value that the Whitecaps are putting on Camilo. And basically the Whitecaps don't have to sell because Camilo cannot turn out for this club unless a deal has been agreed and unless the Mexican club get an international transfer certificate from the CSA. So if the Whitecaps want to play hardball and get the best value possible, which they should, I know they're just going to want to get an end to the situation, but they have to play hard. The ITC will not be released unless the Whitecaps are happy, so stick with that, stick firm.
I would say wait until the last day of the Mexican transfer window is open. I would wait till the last day and see if they up their offer. Now, one thing, I'm going to do a little bit of math about what you were talking about what they're asking for and what the Whitecaps. Now, there was something from Patty Fernandez in Mexico.
Lovely Patty.
And saying that the Mexican club is willing to pay about 70% of what the Whitecaps were requesting. Now, if it's only 1.5 million that is the rumored fee that they're getting, then that means the Whitecaps are only asking for about 2.1 million, which doesn't, compute as in what people are valuing him for. Like, why would the Whitecaps go with such a low offer of asking for only $2 million and then we're settling for 1.5? So that doesn't compute for me a little bit. I think the numbers are probably going to be a little bit higher. I don't think there's going to be the a pittance like Salama was saying in our last podcast that they're just going to get 100,000 or 200,000. I think it's going to be at least a 7-figure figure, and it could be in the mid twos.
The problems I have with this is the Whitecaps didn't want to sell. If the Whitecaps had wanted to sell Camilo and wanted to put him out there as being up for transfer, there's going to have been clubs that were willing to pay more than what Querétaro are going to pay him.
Yeah.
And the Whitecaps are now losing out on the value that they could have got because the player has been selfish and unprofessional and has forced the club to take part in a transfer that they really don't want to take part in. And that bothers me. There was a media conference call yesterday where Carl Robinson spoke again about the situation, and he said that he flew down to Mexico. He had
him and a few other people.
Yep. Probably Greg Anderson.
Yeah.
I don't know if Bobby went down or not, but they had a face-to-face meeting with Camilo. It lasted about half an hour. Voices were raised. They agreed on some issues. They disagreed on some issues. The word coming out was that Camilo agreed he had acted in an unprofessional way, which is good, but it's not acceptable. And the Whitecaps are losing out, and they really have to try and play as much hardball as possible and to try and get the highest value. And I know it's a distraction, and I know they have to free up the money, but I just try and drag this on until you get a satisfactory conclusion. All the word were that Querétaro wanted this completed before the start of the Clausuro or whatever it was that was going to be starting, which I believe was this weekend. But the reports that were coming out from ESPN in Mexico and the reports round about that on Wednesday were that the deal had been signed, sealed and delivered, but then the Whitecaps said Wednesday evening in the conference call that no, it hadn't been. So who knows? It's a saga. It's dragged on. It needs to come to an end. I'm fed up talking about it.
Well, it doesn't need to come to an end because, like we said, we wanted to get the Whitecaps should get as much as they want. They should drag it out a little bit.
But
it just needs to just get. They need to move on, and the Whitecaps need to move on and start signing other players so that the focus is not just on the Camilo situation. It's also about building the team going forward.
Exactly. And we can't take this step forward until we know exactly how much money we've got to play with, what bids we can put in for some overseas players, some top players, some really key cogs. And yeah, I'm sick of talking about him. Let's just leave it there and move on to some happier things. Because we actually do have some new additions in the squad today. 3 new players joined from the MLS SuperDraft, and the draft didn't go according to everyone's plan, which I know, Steve, you always think the mock drafts, if it says that a player is going to such a team, doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen, no.
But let's look at who the Whitecaps ended up with today from the 2014 SuperDraft.
Getting drafted and I know it. Getting drafted and I know it. Getting drafted and I know it.
So 3 players that were drafted by the Whitecaps and know it were centre-back Christian Dean, taken at number 3, Jamaican midfielder Andre Lewis, taken at number 7, and in the second round, at number 30, the Whitecaps took Senegalese striker Mamadou Doudou Diouf. Great name, great ideas for songs. I'm already thinking we can do the Muppets theme for that.
Yeah, I saw you tweet that out.
Oh Mamadou Doudou Diouf. Oh Mamadou Doudou Diouf. Oh Mamadou Doudou Diouf. Oh Diouf, oh Diouf, oh Diouf, Doudou Mamadou. Going to be the big hit. That and my Marco Bustos song. That's what we're going to hear going around MLS stadiums this year. So, Steve, what do you think? 3 new players. Were you happy with who we got? Disappointed with who we didn't get? Obviously, it didn't go the way that people were predicting, but what's your thoughts on who we have so far?
Everybody had us taking Andre Blake and then Eric Miller.
And of course, the rumours were that the Whitecaps were really keen on Blake and were wanting to trade up to the number 1 spot to try and take him. But Philly outbid us with DC.
Yeah.
According to reports, nothing obviously confirmed. and they moved in and swooped and they took Blake.
And I guarantee you that the Whitecaps will say that they never were in talks or anything like that. Or they were just exploring and seeing what they can get. Or maybe they just say they were trying to trade up to get Dean. They could easily say that. They could turn it that way if they want to. Now, in the 3 picks they got, going over Twitter, a lot of people are very pleased at what the Whitecaps got. They say that the 2 guys in the first round probably have the highest upside. I know you don't like that term, but it is a term. It's potential.
Yeah,
it's
like horrible term. I don't know if Ben that started yet.
It's where it's basically, even in the residency they talk about it, where people have a high ceiling. That means that they can actually go a little higher in their talent and where they are able to go. Some people have already reached their ceiling, which is not a good thing. It means that they are not going to be getting better as they grow into the game.
I think I hit my ceiling when I was 12.
Really, that soon?
Yeah.
So Christian Dean, the first pick, we saw. I was searching around after he got selected. Found an interesting thing. He actually came from Dianza Force, which is a rival to the Whitecaps.
Yep, anyone that's seen residency games will be familiar with Dianza. He left, though, before the Whitecaps joined the USSDA, so he never actually played.
He never played against the Whitecaps.
And he's never been to Vancouver either.
No. And so, but he is a friend of Omar Salgado. But the one thing is about him is coming out of club soccer, he was a co-captain, and he actually when he was with Dianza, he was a left winger, which was surprising. So he came to college as a left winger, moved to left back, and then eventually moved to center back.
Very, very strange positional switching there. Like, you see a lot of players, maybe strikers, when they get older, go and play at centre half, or you see left wingers going to left back, right wingers going to right back. But to start off as a left winger and end up as a centre half, that, to me, that doesn't compute very well.
Yeah.
But at least it should show that he's very mobile and got a bit of pace to him.
Yeah, that's the one thing they show. They say he's very athletic when he's on the pitch. Obviously, because he's moving so much and he didn't play too much center back when he was growing up, he's not as good in the air. But he does have a good, ability to hit from set pieces, which is not common for a center back.
No, I guess what it boils down to is what you like in a centre back, what you look for from a centre back. Me, I'm old fashioned. I still call them centre halves, and I like my centre half to be good in the air.
Yeah.
And if we've got a tall guy that isn't good in the air, playing in the middle of your back line, I get nervous with that. I just don't like it.
But the thing is with him, and a lot of people have said that going into the draft, that he's going to need a couple of years. He's not an instant starter. And the Whitecaps shouldn't, we've said in the past, the Whitecaps should not be looking for starters in the draft. This is a place to develop, get a young player who you can maybe work with in a couple of years and make him a starter, or at least a decent backup.
I was going to say he definitely shouldn't see time on the pitch this coming season, but we can't say that. We saw the injuries with our centre-backs last year, that who knows, he might end up finding time on the pitch. And he spoke about that. Media had a conference call with the 2 draft picks from the first round this morning. He was confident that he would find time on the pitch this season, whether in the centre half or left back role. But I just don't see that happening unless we are so down to the bare bones that he's forced into it.
I think most draft picks are going to be saying that. That's the right thing to say. That they're nobody's going to say, I want to just stay on the bench for the first year. Nobody comes out and says that when they get drafted. Now, quick question. We'll go over this quickly. He's a left-footed guy.
Yeah.
Now, we got Demerit as a left-footed guy. You got Leveron as a left-footed guy. You got Dean as a left-footed guy. On the right side, you had O'Brien and you have Mitchell. Do you think this affects whether they sign Demerit? Do you think this has a chance where O'Brien stays instead of Demerit? I don't see them keeping both for whatever reason.
No, I mean, we've said this since the season ended, basically, that we can't keep both. And there's a couple of interesting spins you can put on this. Now, this is just us just chewing the fat just to kind of see what we might come out with at the other end. But you could look at it that signing someone like this puts a bit of pressure on Demerit to sign his contract, because the Whitecaps can say, look, if you don't want to sign, fine, we've got Andy O'Brien, we've got Leveron, we've got this new kid coming in, we've got Jackson Farmer. Or it could be signalling that it's going to be the end of Andy O'Brien because they're going to go with a couple of young centre-backs and they can't keep both the guys. I've said all along, they can't get rid of Demerit just now for all the wrong reasons. That he's the face, he's the first player that they signed, he's so popular, they've lost Camilo, that it would be a PR disaster to get rid of him. and that's the wrong reasons for keeping him. I just don't think he's that good. I don't think he's good for us going forward. I don't think there's long term to him, and he's not good value for the money that he's clearly wanting. He would be excellent trade bait. We could get so much good stuff for that. And we don't know. Dean came across in the conference call as being very mature, and I really like the cut of his jib. And talking of the conference call, let's just hear a little bit of sound bites from that just now. Some of the things he said to the media this morning.
Dream come true. I mean, especially a team on the West Coast, growing up in California, close to home, and I mean, have a friend at the club, Omar Salgado, already, so I've heard great things about it, and just really excited about the prospect of playing for the club. Up until this point, no real sense of where I'd end up. I talked to the coaching staff while I was at the combine during one of the player meetings, and hit it off. Other than that, no real talk about, hey, we'll select you or stuff like that. So it's kind of a bit of a surprise, but I mean, in the end, I'm happy that I got picked by Vancouver. I bring energy, big, athletic, on the larger side, especially. You said good feet, especially at center back. I kind of pride myself a little bit on that. It's something that I like to use to my advantage while playing there. And, just hopefully a lot of hard work on the field as well. I'm ready to come in and play wherever I would have ended up. I think, especially at Vancouver, I think coming in the defense will be something that will be a possibility for me, and especially possibly left back or center back, wherever they decide to try me out. Either one works for me. I haven't played left back in a while, so I would have to kind of adjust back into that, but I love both positions. Right now I'm probably a little more comfortable with center back, but I could play left also.
So the Caps ending up with their first pick, a centre back, and all the expectation was that the Caps were going to draft to fill their needs. And centre backs maybe not something that you think of as being their main need just now. Right back definitely was, and of course so many of the mock drafts before everything came out had the Whitecaps taken at number 7 Eric Miller. But those pesky Frenchies got in before us, did a trade to move up the draft, and took Miller from right under our noses. Is that how you see it playing out? Do you think they were going to have taken Miller?
There's a chance they could have taken Miller, but there's no guarantees. They're also, Philadelphia were looking for a right back as well.
Philadelphia just seemed to want to get rid of all their draft picks after they got Blake. They didn't care.
No, but the funny thing is Montreal jumped in front of Philadelphia in order to get Miller. Why didn't they just jump in front of Vancouver and trade with Philadelphia? Because Philadelphia, as soon as Miller was picked, they traded down. So my thinking is Miller wouldn't be available at number 7 if the Union stayed where they were. Because maybe they were looking at number 6 with Eric Miller.
Possibly, and it was always going to be a risk taking anyway. He was never going to be a starter, and it's something else. I'm not sad that we didn't get Blake. He was a good prospect. I just don't think that it was something that was vital for the Whitecaps to get him.
Well, we don't know if he would have wanted. He's excited to play in Canada either, because
that's true.
Apparently, old tweet that he did during the World Cup qualifying, he tweeted out, "If you're not watching the USA Mexico World Cup qualifying, you might as well just move to Canada." Yeah. Which I'm
sure that would have come up if he'd signed for us. That would have been doing the rounds pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I wish him good luck, not only in Canada but in French-speaking Canada.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
French lessons.
And the thing about not getting Miller is I've said for several weeks now that in that right back position, I don't want a young prospect. I'd rather have 2 veterans or 2 pretty equal talents battling it out. So you've got 2 really good players that are going to play in the right back position.
So let's forget about who we didn't pick.
True.
And let's move on to the 7th pick. And they picked up Jamaican Youth International, Andre Lewis.
Yep, we didn't get one Jamaican Andre, but we did get the second Jamaican Andre.
Yeah, and who knows, he could be the better one out of the 2.
He could be Andre the Giant.
He's only 5'7" though.
He could be Andre the Midget. Although he's only an inch smaller than me, so he's normal sized man, perfect size for a man, I think.
And he was actually somebody that really impressed in the combine.
He turned a lot of heads where some of the other players turned a lot of stomachs.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to read a couple comments about his performance at the Combine from the MLS website. He stood immediately for his toughness and skill on the ball. He's got a good first touch and it is elusive. He made him take notice that even after he took a hit or two, that he maintained possession and made a play. And he didn't get bullied around by guys that were 40 pounds heavier than him. So it looks good. Of course, he was playing against people that were in college, but he stood out amongst those players.
And it's the Combine, which I hold no regard for whatsoever.
But if you think about it, when people go on scouting trips to down south or something like that, you only look at like a player playing a couple of games. You don't play.
Not if you're doing your scouting properly. For example, I know for a fact that the Whitecaps made 4 or 5 trips down to New Mexico, and they were watching Ben McKendry and some of the New Mexico teammates.
But that's their own guy, right?
Yeah, but they were also, because of that, they're watching the players on a regular basis.
But then in this case, like if you go to a Caribbean country or something like that, you're going down. Say Johnny Leveron. Luckily for them, Johnny Leveron was playing in the Olympics, so they got to see him there. But if they had not seen him, they would have only seen him a couple of games. Like another example,
it's the whole scouting by YouTube thing. Again. Yeah, but you're doing well just now, actually.
Thanks. Also, Gershon Kofi. How many times did Tommy Sowen see Gershon Kofi? Not often. I'm assuming maybe 2-3 times. And that's how much a Combine is.
I believe, though, that there was a hot dog factory down there, so that did make him go down a bit.
And he was wearing a mustard suit today.
Yeah,
dark mustard.
That was really strange. I thought he had actually turned into a hot dog.
So that's Andre Lewis. I tweeted out, if you check my Twitter at Whitecaps Beat, there's a couple of videos of him scoring against in the U17 Jamaican team against France. And he also, some grainy video from his, I think, high school or something like that.
And Andre was on the conference call as well this morning, and I have to say, and it's early, and you don't want to get down on the guy, but after the whole Darren Matic situation, I'm wary of very confident and cocky young Jamaican players. And he also said that he was a big fan of the Whitecaps because of Darren Matic, so that set my alarm bells ringing. Just as long as we don't see him appearing on Jamaican TV in December this year or next year doing any interesting interviews.
And then hopefully he can also cook for himself.
Oh, definitely.
That's a big... hopefully they did some scouting on that, his cooking ability.
But enough of me talking about what he said on the conference call. Let's hear a little bit from our new midfielder, Andre Lewis, LA.
Excited to be with Vancouver. I'm a fan of Vancouver because of Darren Matic. He's Jamaican. I love the support that the fans give to Vancouver, and I'm looking forward to start professional career with the Whitecaps, and to just go there, work hard, and do my best, and to represent for my country, myself as well, my family. Anywhere I go, I want to be with a Jamaican, But if not, it's okay. I just have to prepare myself to move on my own, to be mature, even though I'm 19. So I just think that. Consider that I just have to go there and be myself anywhere I go.
Can you describe yourself a little bit as well, just as a player?
I'm pretty cool. Nice to sit around and talk. I love to have fun with my friends. Sit home and play video games. That's just me. I love to just give jokes. I will sit alone and laugh all day. I always want to learn new stuff. So that's just me.
Yeah, and on the field, Andre, how do you describe yourself to the fans here as a player?
On the pitch, I always want to be the top player, win or lose. I want to be on top of my game at all times. So I'm the player that encourage my player that come on. If it is a bad game, we can step up and do much better. So I'm pretty good talking to my teammates, telling them that come on, we can do this.
So a centre-back and a midfielder picked up in the first round. Happy with that? I have to say I wasn't overly jumping through hoops. I didn't think it was fantastic picks.
No, I thought they were decent picks. I think you got Christian Dean, who was rated as the number 1 player. Everybody had him number 1 or number 2 in the draft. You picked him up at number 3, no big deal. You don't have to waste a international spot on a backup goalkeeper. That's a positive. And then, I don't see it as being a big problem. Midfielder, I'm hoping this doesn't affect signing of Bustos or Froze. That could be a possibility. Maybe they wait a little bit to sign those guys. Positive is that they drafted an international midfielder. Maybe that means Aminu Abdullah gets released.
We can hope, because we really could do with freeing up some international spots, because
they're going to need to. Well, Camilo's gone.
Yeah, and we need to look at all the domestic things. We know that Lewis is definitely going to be an international because he's coming from Portmore United, who are the club that the Whitecaps will be playing down in the Portland Rose City Invitational next month. And in the second round, with our pick that we had there, we picked up another international. We picked up a striker out of Yukon from Senegal, Mamadou Doudou Diouf. I just love saying his full name. It's just got such a great ring to it. And I'm very excited about this signing. From what I'd read about him before the draft, and from what we've seen video-wise after him, and from what we've since read after we picked him, I think that's a fantastic pickup.
Well, a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of people who, like Soccer by Ives, that's one guy, calling it a steal, drafting him so late. He was injured for a lot of 2013, but in 2012 he was a candidate for Player of the Year.
Yeah, he led Yukon in scoring.
Yeah.
He was also injured a lot in his freshman year.
Yeah.
Then he played the full seasons in his second and third years. And my concern is, do we have a player that's another draftee, Omar Salgado, that's going to be plagued by injuries?
Yeah, it's a possibility, but that could be happening to anybody. Omar Salgado wasn't injury plagued before he got drafted, and he became
just since, yeah. I like Diouf. I think it's a really, really good pick for us. And
it could be a depth forward, somebody who's in the 5th, 6th spot. Maybe this spells the end for Tommy Heineman, but maybe not. But it's somebody
very,
size-wise.
very different players, because Heineman brings the height and aerial threat.
Well, he's 6'1" too.
Yeah, but I mean, from what we've seen from Diouf, he's a lot better on the deck, and we do need to strengthen up front. I was hoping that we would take a look at Mullins.
But he dropped quite a bit.
I was so surprised that he went down to 11th. Now, I've followed the college game more this year or last year than I have before, because I've really got into it. I've really enjoyed the games I've watched, and I wanted to know more about the players for this draft. By no means anywhere near an expert, but I thought Mullins definitely had potential. And there's obviously something about him that was putting teams off.
Definitely. I'm not sure what it was, but you have the Player of the Year going all the way. Got drafted by New England in the early teens. It's got to say something.
I think he went 11th, and they traded up to get him.
But I think going back to Diouf, I think he could be a player down the road. Maybe he gets loaned out and doesn't play the first year with the Whitecaps. Maybe he goes to Charleston. I want to tell our listeners a little bit about Diouf. This is a scouting report I found on the site. Some of his pros, he's got amazing kicking power, the strength, so definitely there, sized, got good awareness, soccer IQ, and he has potential. In fact, this report says he has a chance to rival Darren Maddox as being one of the top strikers. This is from a couple years ago when he was rumored to be a Generation Adidas player. He was almost signed to a Generation Adidas.
I know, he nearly came out early.
Even last 2 years. But he decided to stick out in the college, which obviously hurt him because he got injured this year.
But I got him an education, so I'm always for that.
Cons, durability, obviously. That's obvious. And one thing he obviously has probably worked on, but this is, like I said, this is from a couple years ago. They said he's purely a goal scorer. He doesn't connect well and provide assists or provide playmaking ability up front. And again, hopefully this is something he worked on. This is, again, something I found a couple years ago. His kicking accuracy is not that great. But that's as 2 years ago, so that's as a sophomore. I couldn't find anything recently about what his report was.
I'm excited to see what he can do in a professional environment under the coaching staff. Kyle Robinson worked hard with our strikers before when he wasn't the head coach. It's going to be interesting to see who he brings in still as this other assistant coach. Because if it was someone like, say, Danny Dickio, who was rumoured, a striker, if he brings in somebody that's good working with strikers, a player like Diouf and then working closely with Kikutamane and Omer Salgado and those guys, we might really kind of to see the best coming out of that.
But the question is, who then coaches the defenders? You would think that, I personally think that there should be a defensive, somebody that can fix the defensive side.
That's a very good point.
Unless Robinson is going to stay away from the strikers and then start dealing with the midfielders and the defenders.
Or maybe he'll continue working with the strikers, and whoever comes in as this, basically what's going to really be his right-hand man. Because we discussed last time, we see Gordon as being the number 3 in the coaching pecking order. So whoever comes in as his right-hand man, maybe will be a defensive guy.
Yeah. So, wrapping up the draft, we should obviously talk about Michael Calderon. No, don't.
Yes, I'm going to talk about Michael Calderon, still available. I still see the Whitecaps taking him.
Even though they've drafted 2 internationals?
Yeah, actually, I don't see them taking him anymore because of that. I'm still trying to pump this guy's tyres. I'm not his agent. If he wants me to be his agent, happy to be his agent. But yeah, I think taking those 2 international things has possibly buggered my chance of seeing Calderon and a Calderon-McHenry partnership in the middle for the Whitecaps. Now, on draft day, a lot of media there, all the MLS top brass, all the coaches, lots of rumours flying about. Some of them concerning Whitecaps players, current and potential. And one of the rumours flying around is, and this is again from Soccer by Ives, is that Eric Hurtado could be getting traded. That was the word down in Philly at the draft today. We've obviously talked about that before. We wouldn't be unhappy to see him go. But what do you think we could possibly get for that?
I think at this point you could almost get anything for him and you'd be satisfied, because one thing, before we even talk about what you can get for him, it opens a spot up for Ben Fisk. And I think Ben Fisk is better than Eric Hurtado in the long run and the short run.
We should have a drinking game, actually, how many times we see Ben Fisk to get signed this year, because I think we've said it quite a lot. But that's just how passionate we are about him.
But I think that opens up a spot for him. That's number 1.
Definitely. He's going to get signed. I bet my house on it again.
Okay, cool. And even though you don't own the house.
Yeah, but I'm not afraid to risk that.
Okay. And
or jail.
In addition to that, if you want to avoid any kind of comparisons with the whatever you get back, you just get allocation money, and that way nobody's ever going to find out what the allocation money is. So you don't have to worry about whether you got a value or anything like that. Now, there was a rumor, somebody put it out there on Twitterverse, that Zach McMath wasn't happy with the Andre Blake drafting. First overall, he was at the draft talking feverishly with his agent.
Yep, very animated apparently.
Whitecaps need a backup keeper. Maybe Zach McMath could be that keeper that they trade for.
And I wouldn't be unhappy with that. I'd still prefer us to go with Thomas and Carducci as our 2 and 3. We do need a quality backup and a guy that can step in. Because Ousted is just an injury or flying out of his box and getting a red card away from the Whitecaps being in a bit of a mess. So we need to have a good backup. McMath would do that. Whether he would want to come as a backup, of course, being a starting keeper with Philly as he was last year, is a whole different matter. But at the same time, there's a big difference in going to a new club and battling it out for the number 1 spot, as opposed to being the number 1 at a club and then getting ousted, no pun intended, by a new kid coming in from the draft. So we'll see what happens with that. So we threw out on Twitter, ask our listeners what they thought of the draft. So let's go over some of those tweets just now.
I am a message, 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 I am a.
So looking at some of the tweets, Steve V at North Van Steve says, he's worried about a lack of direction, not age. Who leads the attack from centre mid? Who replaces YP Lee? Very valid points. The right back thing, it's not becoming panic stations. It's becoming very close because you've got training camp opening in 10 days and we don't have a right back.
Well, it still could be, the trades still could occur. Maybe Eric Hurtado gets traded for a right back. You never know. Maybe
we'll even see Jamie Peters coming back, trying out. I think we'll probably see a lot of trialists in the first few days or weeks of the training camp, definitely.
And then I just want to mention Big Mac at CP_CNC. I tweeted out Andre Lewis's goal that he scored against France, and he responded back, I like it. Also, Alexander Nash at Crafty747 tweeted out when we mentioned that Christian Dean could play left back, mentioned that Jordan Harvey better watch his back.
That's not going to happen. There's no way. I mean, Dean himself said that
he's more comfortable.
He hasn't played left back for ages. He's more comfortable centre back. This isn't Martin Rennie trying to break players down or try them in unusual
nobody
positions.
Gets broken down this year.
Yeah, so that isn't going to happen. Jake Nemec at J Nemec on Twitter, that's NEMEC, said he's happy with today's picks. This year's squad should be fun to watch. Throw in one or two new DPs and they should compete. I'm a big fan of youth. And we had an interesting chat on Twitter this morning. It was you, myself, Davey Norman and Carlo Corazine and Mark Rogers. We were talking about the whole youth aspect of the Whitecaps. Carlo's a big believer that it doesn't matter about age. If they're good enough, get them in the team. Nigel Reo-Coker's always going on about that. I'm a big believer about that as well. At the same time, though, I have concerns that there's a huge gap. I tweeted this out yesterday and was talking about it on the Southsiders forum, and Mark Weber tweeted it out later as well. He was talking about the same thing. There's a big gap to me in the players between, say, the 25 and 30, 31 age range. We're missing those important key players, guys with a bit more experience, a bit of knowledge of the game that can slow it down, know the things that they need to do in the game, and can be the help for the younger players. We've got a lot of old heads, and playing such a schedule where you're travelling so many miles, you're playing on different surfaces, some horrible turf out there, including the home games at BC Place, that all takes a toll on the old guys. And I think we're too heavily reliant as of now, and looking at the possible residency guys that we bring in, on youth. And it's great having this youthful direction, but you need to have some guys 26, 27, 28 thrown in there as well. And that's what we've not got, and these are the guys that we now need to start picking up, and we need to do it pretty soon.
So another one, Justin Abeling at Franco Demenco tweeted out concerning the Mamadou Diouf pick. I feel like I'm overreacting to this pick a bit, but I'm really, really happy with this pick.
Definitely my most exciting signing of the three. So keep the tweets coming. We'll cover it when we do our next podcast, which should be next week. We'll wrap this one up for now, but before we go, we want to give you some news which was put out this morning by, I never know how to pronounce his name, Liviu Bird.
Yeah, it happened actually right after the draft was over.
Yeah, former goalkeeper with Kitsap Pumas.
And Seattle Pacific too, University.
Very respected journalist down in Washington State, and he broke the news that Bayern Munich are considering games in New York and Vancouver. So we could see Bayern Munich turning out at BC Place, which would be fantastic if they're not playing the Whitecaps. I want them to play another team. I'm not against seeing these big name teams playing here. I still don't think the Whitecaps should be playing them. And I know it's a massive game and it would be great for the players. Can you imagine like Bustos and Froze playing against Bayern? They'd love that. But it could completely mess up our season, looking at how we collapse in July.
So one thing about the Bayern potential friendly, do you think this is a makeup by MLS? Is MLS setting this up for the Whitecaps to make up for the Camilo situation? Is this like a payback kind of thing to get this thing resolved faster?
Actually, that's a good call. That could be something because they have to do something to keep the fan base on side here, and a big glamour friendly like that would certainly do it. That's really, really good idea.
Yeah, maybe they took it. Maybe it was scheduled for somebody else, and they have asked them to back off, and then they'll set it up for Vancouver at this point. It'll bring in a lot of money and everything like that.
It certainly will create a lot of buzz and a lot of hype in the city. I'm just not a big fan of these mid-season friendlies, but it is what it is. And if it helps grow the profile of the club, and it helps people take an interest and even win over a couple of fans into being Whitecaps fans, and it's going to be worth it.
Do you think they would give this as a free ticket to the season ticket holders, or do you, like they did for Man City, or do you think this would be you have to pay for it if you want to watch it this time?
It could depend on the Amway. If we always get 2 free tickets in the season ticket package for the Amway games. If we get to the final, then they'll get used up. So in that case, I would think it wouldn't come to season ticket holders. They might get a discount, but I think they're going to try and make as much money out of this as possible.
Yeah, maybe they don't think that they're going to get past TFC, because obviously TFC is the team they're going to play in the semifinals, and they won't have that second game to use for the season ticket, so they don't want to refund all the money back either.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't refund because it's just, they say it's 2 tickets that can be used, and it's branded for the Amway, so if there isn't a second game, so then they can spin it and say, look, you didn't get this, but look, we're giving you a free ticket or a discount ticket to the
Bayern Munich
game instead. So folk will like that.
Except for the hardcore fans.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the reaction. If it was at any other teams, apart from, say, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Man United, I think you'd get a different reaction.
You could even get Liverpool in there, probably. Liverpool would sell out. Yeah, I think there's quite a few Liverpool people around.
I've actually always wanted Chelsea to come because I've got some really good Ashley Cole songs I really want to sing at him. The thing is, as well, the Whitecaps have always said that they'll only play international friendlies if it's worthwhile to them and it gives them the chance of making it a big occasion, opening up all of BC Place, and Bayern Munich would certainly give that possibility.
It definitely will be. They're one of the top teams. They're obviously a Champions League team, right?
And of course it'll appease all the Euro fans and make them think, hey, they're on a par with Bayern Munich. So we'll see what happens. If it comes off, it comes off. I'm still a bit meh about it. That's it for this episode. So, as always, thanks for listening. Steve, tell everyone where they can find you on Twitter.
You can find me at Whitecaps Beat, and obviously writing for Canadian Soccer News at AFTN.
And I'm Michael McCall, and you can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Drop us an email to the podcast at aftncanada@hotmail.com, and find all our writings online on Canadian Soccer News at aftn.ca, and also watch out for some of my articles on soccerly.com. Another draft over. I was actually quite excited by this draft. I didn't think the quality was fantastic, but just with all the trades and everything going back and forward, it made it a little bit of excitement for at least the first hour. But the Whitecaps at least have 3 new players. Just need to get some more experience in there and a couple of right backs. Hopefully when we do our next podcast next week, we'll have some of that to talk about. So until then, thanks for listening, take care, and mon the Caps.
One day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.